Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Janavallabha Girivardhari Jai Gopi Janavallabha Girivardhari Yashodanandana Prajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Prajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Padavijaka Astoto the Sri Srimad His Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Padavijaka Astoto the Sri Srimad His Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Ki Jai Ananda Koti Vaishnavini Ki Jai Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Kantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai Samaveda Bhaktavinda Ki Jai All glory to the assembled devotees All glory to the assembled devotees All glory to the assembled devotees All glory to Shri Guru and Gauranga. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Okay. On this 4th day of January, 2026, in San Diego, we're reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. And we are in the 9th canto, Liberation, 9th chapter, the dynasty of Angshuman, text 33. Evam Karuna Bhashinya Vilapantya Anatavat Vyagraha Pashum Ivakadhat Saudāsa Shapa Mohitaha Evam Karuna Bhashinya Vilapantya Anatavat Vyagrak Pashum Ivakadhat Saudāsa Shapa Mohitaha Evam Karuna Bhashinya Vilapantya Anatavat Vyagra Pashum Ivakadhat Saudāsa Shapa Mohitaha Evam Karuna Bhashinya Vilapantya Anatavat Vyagra Pashumi Bhakadat Saudāsa Kṣāpamohitaha. Evam Karunabhāsinya Vilapantya Anatavat Vyagram Pasamibhakadhat Saudāsa Kṣāpamohitaha. Evam Karunabhāsinya Vilapantya Anatavat Vyagra Pasamibhakadhat Saudāsa Kṣāpamohitaha. Come on, there's got to be at least one more here. Evam Karunabhāsinya Vilapantya Anatavat Vyagra Pasamibhakadhat Saudāsa Kṣāpamohitaha. Bhakti Chad. Evam Karunabhāsinya Vilapantya Anatavat Vyagram Pasamibhakadhat Saudāsa Kṣāpamohitaha. Anyone online want to try?
Evam Karunabhāsinya
Evam Karunabhāsinya
Vilapantya Anatavat
Vilapantya Anatavat
Vyagraha Pasumivakyadat
Vyagra Pasamibhakadhat
Saudāsa Kṣāpamohitaha.
Saudāsa Kṣāpamohitaha. Evam. In this way, Karunabhāsinya, while the Brahman's wife was speaking very pitiably, Vilapantya, lamenting severely, Anatavat, exactly like a woman who has no protector, Vyagraha, a tiger, Pashum, prey animal. That's P-R-E-Y. Iva, like. Akadat, ate up. Saudāsaha, King Saudāsa. Shapa, by the curse. Mohitaha, because of being condemned. Translation. Being condemned by the curse of Vasiṣṭha, King Saudāsa devoured the Brahman exactly as a tiger eats his prey. Even though the Brahman's wife spoke so pitiably, Saudāsa was unmoved by her lamentation. Purport. This is an example of destiny. King Saudāsa was condemned by the curse of Vasiṣṭha, and therefore, even though he was well qualified, he could not restrain himself from becoming a tiger-like Rākṣasa, for this was his destiny. Talabhyate dukkha vadanyatak sukham. Srimad Bhagavatam 1:5-18. As one is put into distress by destiny, destiny can also put one in a happy situation. Destiny is extremely strong, but one can change destiny if one comes to the platform of Krishna consciousness. Karmani nirdahati kintu bhakti bhajam. Brahma Samhita 5:54. Om jnana timirandasya jnanandana salakaya chakshurun militam yena tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkest of ignorance, but my spiritual master Srila Prabhupada opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer humble obeisance unto him and all members of Shri Parampara, the disciplic succession. So here we see the kind of amazing and kind of hair-raising result of this curse that King Saudāsa got because I forget how it was. But the Vasiṣṭha, was it his servant or son who was eaten? Or the cook was cursed to become a Rākṣasa, or he was cooking, human flesh, and it was fed to Vasiṣṭha. And so Vasiṣṭha cursed Saudāsa, whose cook it was, to turn into a Rākṣasa, and he couldn't stop the curse. And so then we had this situation where this Brahmin was about to have sex with his wife, but Saudāsa was cursed to eat him, and he was about to eat him, right? And so the wife pitiably prayed, please, I want to have a son, and this is my only way to have a son, you can't eat. But he was forced by the curse to eat this Brahmin. And so the wife then, in the fire of, burning his body, she walked in there, and so it was a horrible situation. And Prabhupada explains in this short purport here, this power of destiny. And it's almost just like a curse, in the sense that you're forced to do something or not do something according to what Prabhupada sometimes call it providence. So how does that work, and why is that important for us? Well, as we know, as I know from personal experience, I had no idea about Krishna consciousness. I was a total atheist. I was skirting with disaster, living on the Lower East Side. My people I was living with were taking heavy drugs, and I almost took LSD, but I didn't, thank God. But I escaped, and maybe it was because at that time the temple had moved from its the original temple of 22nd Avenue up the street. I don't know if you know that. They moved to another place on 2nd Avenue, a larger place, because they needed more room. And they were there for a few months. I don't even think they were there for a year. But that's where I lived. I was living on Lower East Side, two blocks from Tompkins Square Park on 9th Avenue. And I was going around looking for people to jam with. I was playing the flute, bamboo flute, believe it or not. And I would hear the tink, 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 tinkle, tinkle, tinkle of the Harinam party on St. Mark's Place. That was the main drag there. And I was thinking, oh, that's a nice rhythm, let me check it out. But then it was, oh, it's just a Hare Krishnas. But I was hearing Hare Krishna a little bit, And anyway, the whole idea behind Lord Chaitanya's movement is to expose people to Krishna in the form of the holy name, in the form of prasadam, in the form of books and instruction. Just like we sing every morning, that the spiritual master, he imparts this transcendental knowledge, right? Which, of course, eliminates ignorance, but also infuses the desire to perform devotional service. We should always remember that what is it why we do what we do. And of course, this is analyzed in the second chapter. If you meditate on the objects of the senses, with no knowledge about how bad that is for you to do sense gratification, you're just sort of following the dictates of the mind, you're going to develop attachment for the objects of the senses, right? That sangha is so important. Sangha means attraction, and it means that which produces attraction, association, both things. And if you have no other influence, if you don't have the transcendental influence and so forth, then that attachment will strengthen into kama. Sangat sanjayate kama, right? And kama is practically irresistible. Of course, that's why it's also the word for sex desire, because sex desire is such an impulse. The animals are doing it, and human beings also do it, unless they have an education that infuses a moral structure, that believe in God, they think it's the wrong thing to do. In other words, they're infused with that. And so then people can avoid that, and they'll get married in a church and so forth, and there'll be some kind of control. But the problem is, in today's world, the influences are so pervasive for sin and performing gross sensual activities through the internet, through TikTok and all of these things, which come, that it's practically impossible to avoid or to control these desires that are infused in you from childhood, basically. So the idea is it's almost like a curse. It's like a curse. These curses are so powerful. Here we assume that King Saudāsa, as Prabhupada, he's condemned by the curse. So his higher intelligence may say, yes, this is a very bad thing. This poor woman is appealing to me, But he couldn't stop himself from devouring the Brahman. It's ghastly, killing him and then eating him up like an animal of prey. It's described right in the Sanskrit. So why is this so important for us? I had this one verse I memorized from Brahma's prayers for creative energy, I think in the 3rd canto. And he's talking about who goes to Vaikuntha, who doesn't get to go to Vaikuntha. So this verse is describing who doesn't get to go. Yanna vajant agabado vachananuvara chinvandihe annivishya kukatama tigni yastu shutha hatabagaya nibarata saras tang chapanta shadaneshu tamaksohanta. The last word is alas in this verse, hanta. So what does it mean? Yanna vajanti, they don't go. They don't go who do the following. Agabidhora. Agabidhora is a name for Krishna, means he who destroys sin. Okay, using that name. Rachananuvada means the construction of words, either heard orally or read, In other words, literature or instruction. Rachananuvada chinvanti ye annivishya. Instead of listening to words describing the name, form, qualities, pastimes, instructions of Krishna, you're listening to all millions of material sounds. Kukata, he calls it kukata. Other topics. Kukata, which is the worst opposite of Krishna kata. Matigni, which destroys your intelligence. Then he describes those topics, those sessions of listening to that. Yastu shuta, hearing them. Hatabagaya, it takes away all your good fortune. Hatabagaya, yastu shuta, hatabagaya nirbir for a human being. Atasaras, and destroys your interest, your involvement in the ultimate goal of life. Saras means the essence of life. You see, you're brainwashed. You're brainwashed. And then those topics that you listen to, tang chapanti, they throw you down. Tang chapanta shadaneshu tamaksuhanta. Without any shelter, you're in darkness and you're at the mercy of the material energy. All from hearing, karmi sounds, kukata. So you can see how important this is, because what is it that turns someone, from just an ordinary karmi, bewildered by what to do or not to do, and at the mercy of, so-called mercy of the material energy, to a devotee who is not 100% devotee, but who has the spiritual strength to chant. That's the most important thing. Chant the holy name, that influence. And by doing that, get the strength to avoid the influences of material energy, beginning with kukata, and to welcome and to embrace auspicious influences. We had an interesting experience. I'm sorry, my energy level on the 31st, the New Year's Eve night, was very low. I couldn't leave the kirtan, but I was there, watching. And then that whole session at the corner, which we never had something like that before, I don't think. We did maybe some, but not to that extent. And you can see there was so many, celebrators, people who were out to have a good time, who got involved mostly because of the dancing and the meter and so forth together. So who knows what they were coming from, some restaurant or going where they were going, what their intoxication level was. But they were involved. They were hearing the holy name, and they were relating to the devotees, and there was some exchange there. And we all knew that was a great blessing for whoever happened to engage in that way. That it's going to have an effect on them, and who knows how it'll play out. Next time when they meet a devotee, maybe the books you distributed, and they say, yeah, I remember that Hare Krishna, yeah, sure, I'll take that little book, Whatever it is, it has a tremendous power, the sound. So then there's another verse by Brahma, I think it's in the same series of verses, but maybe a different one, where he's describing the opposite. And it says, Ye tu tvadiya chadanam dukosha gandham jigranti kana vibaraishu divata nitam Bhaktya guhita chadanakpadayachitesam napati nashavidayambodhasapunsam. So this is as opposed to one who is hearing with great interest, kukata. This is someone who, those who, on the other hand, two is but. Tvadiya is the prayer directly to Krishna. Chadanamba Jakosha Gandham, who can relish the fragrance of your lotus feet through the ears by hearing transcendental description of him from a devotee. Chadanamba Jakosha Jigranti Karna Vivarai Shrutivata Nitam, carried by the air of the Shrutis, of the Vedic literatures. What happens to them? Bhaktya the Chadana. They accept the process of bhakti, devotion to your lotus feet. Bhaktya Chadana Pariyachitesham Napaiti, and then you are never separated from the lotus of their hearts. In other words, those who are fortunate enough to get an attraction by exposure, obviously by sadhu sangha to some degree, to the sound vibration describing Krishna's name, form, qualities, pastime, instructions, then if they pursue that, they're fortunate to pursue that, then they'll eventually take lotus feet of Krishna into their hearts, and it'll never leave. They'll actually, this is the path back to Godhead. So that is the kind of the essence of what this Krishna conscious movement is all about, is that Krishna came as Lord Chaitanya in order to practically force people to hear the holy name of Krishna, right? He went out there because he's beginning in Navadvip with the first Harinam party. There are hundreds of thousands of devotees. All right, that Kazi, the government, broke the Madanga drums and is trying to suppress the Harinam. We'll have this, probably it calls it in purport, civil disobedience, right? Everybody come out with torches tonight. And we'll have this big kirtan, and we'll go to the Kazi's house, and we'll have a little discussion, So he comes out, everyone comes out, and they're all ecstatic. He's leading the kirtan. You can imagine, how powerful it was. And I think it's in the Chaitanya Bhagavatam. You probably read it, a detailed description, because he sent out, his gendarmes, the police, to try to stop it. They were way outnumbered, And they all had these beards, so they were trying to hide their beards or cut their beards off, because they felt outnumbered, 1,000 to 1. So they couldn't be stopped. It was just like that kirtan, Wednesday night. I don't know if any police were thinking maybe it should be stopped, but we weren't blocking anything really, so they didn't stop it. Anyway, so that's the great advantage. Just by being part of that, just by being exposed to it, that's so powerful. I remember, when I was reading the pastime of Vitrasura, that whole thing, and the Chitraketu, when he was offering his prayers, I think to Sankarshan, and one of them was that one line was, I don't remember the Sanskrit. If someone hears, usually if you just chant, because you can't chant, this is really you can't chant once. Chanting means repeating. If you utter the holy name even once, then that destroys eons of your sinful reactions. It doesn't matter what else you're doing, if you utter it even once. Usually we say if you hear it once, from chanted purely. But so he's saying like that, and that's a tremendous impetus to go on Harinam. People even if they hear it once, you go on the beach or anywhere where there's any crowd, like we were with that Ratha Yatra, there were thousands of people on either side. And many of them were familiar with it. You can see, some of them were chanting. It was very livening. Maharaj was in ecstasy up on that cart when we finally got going. Oh, it's a wonderful crowd. So the point is that it's just like, it's not a curse, obviously. But the power of the holy name, especially when chanted purely, enters the ears and transforms anyone. It transforms it. Even the animals, are helped by it. Boy, to speak of human beings. So our task, our choice, is to always immerse ourselves as much as possible in transcendental sound vibration, just chanting the holy name ourselves, hearing the Shastra, repeating it, sharing it, trying to distribute it, and to try to understand the meaning and to make absorb those instructions as far as possible as we can, and pray to have the strength to follow those that are difficult to follow and give up the process, things. So it's a question of desire, and it very much this idea of the curse. In America, many of you have heard this history. I think it's nicely described in the Lilamrita. The era where there were these deprogrammers, you know, because there were a lot of other cults around. Sometimes I wince, you know, could probably use that word cult to describe the Chaitanya cult, right? We wanted to spread the Chaitanya cult. Oh boy, the cultists are going to have the anti-cult movement have a ball with this if they read it. But he meant culture, you know. He didn't mean a brainwashing cult, you know. But so that's what it means. But the anti-cult movement. So the parents, you know, they were Christians or whatever, and their kid got involved with the Hare Krishnas, and they're living in the temple, you know. So they would hire these goons, really, to kidnap devotees and take them off to a secluded cabin somewhere in the Appalachian Mountains or something, and then try to, you know, force him to, if he wanted anything to eat, he had to eat meat, and force him, you know, to hear blasphemy and everything, and try to break his spirit, and so that way cure him enough so that they could then return him to the parents and get their fee. And finally, it was broken down because one of the main things was it was a case in New York. I remember the president there, I think it was GBC at the time, Adi Keshava, he was one of the main witnesses because they had kidnapped someone right out of that New York temple, right in front of it. I wasn't there at the time, but I heard about it. And so there was a big court case. And somehow the way that, you know, Adi Keshava and others had presented Krishna consciousness to the judge, he adjudicated that Krishna consciousness is a bona fide religion. You know, and he probably was in Mayapur, and they had the paper, and they showed it to him. You know, he said, "Now my movement is successful." You know, and so that movement, you know, stopped. And why? Because then these deprogrammers started to get prosecuted as kidnappers, and they didn't want any part of that, so they stopped that. It happened right here. There was an instant right here. There was a devotee. He became initiated eventually. I forget his name now. Bhaktisiddhanta? Oh, no, he really? Okay. But this was here, and we was taking breakfast, and he was visiting the temple, and he described... Not Arya Siddhanta. No, it wasn't Arya Siddhanta. But anyway, he described his scene at home, you know, and everything. It was a Jewish family, and they knew that he was a little involved, and they were warning him that, you know, this is the rabbi doesn't like this and everything, you know. So I said, "Oh boy, that sounds like a deprogramming scene that's going to happen." He said, "What is that?" And I described what I just described to you. He said, "Oh, really?" I said, "Well, I'll watch out for that, you know." So I was out of town. I think I just had come back from Alachua, and I had come to the Sunday feast, and everybody was standing up and buzzing, and I said, "What's going on? What happened?" Oh, and he was in the crowd, and he said, "Oh, they tried to deprogram Prabhu, you know." And what happened is, they came and they told him that his parents wanted to talk to him, and they had a van out there with the deprogrammers, right on Cass here, but he was on his guard because I had told him about it. So they tried to grab him, and he punched him. You know, they weren't expecting it. And they just fell down, and he ran back in the temple, and they drove off, and he thwarted it, and he became initiated devotee. So anyway. The whole idea, this idea of brainwashing, you know, it's a real thing. And how do they do it? Well, they keep you captive, and they make you hear this, you know, and eventually your mind just breaks, and you become, it's like you're cursed, you know, it's like a curse here. So this idea, you know, this is kind of really ghastly, this whole business here, but. The whole point is that there's a battle. There's a battle for our mind. And when you first come to Krishna consciousness, there's all of the influences from your upbringing or whatever, you know, you studied that's not Krishna conscious. But you've been fortunate enough to get the desire seed to at least, you know, check it out. Come to a kirtan, come to the temple, check out the book, you know. And Prabhupada's writing is so powerful. I like to quote this purport from the 4th canto, the famous where Prabhupada is talking about how the words emanating from the mouth of pure devotee are very powerful because they have picked up the saffron mercy particles from the lotus feet of Krishna, you know. And so the words, actually hearing the words from the pure devotee, there's a real power there. That's why I encourage devotees to get over the hump, if there is one, of getting through Prabhupada's accents, so you can understand the words. And let's listen to some of the many recordings we have. We used to have once a week. You remember Balaram? You remember? We'd have, it was a Sunday. We'd have Monday. We'd have a lecture by Prabhupada. I actually bought a screen that later was dismantled, and it became the screen that we had hanging in here for years. That we would just put up right there, and I would project the transcript so the devotees could follow if they couldn't understand the accent. So we don't do that anymore because we have so many class givers, but you can do it on your own, and to cultivate listening to Prabhupada's words. And it's this idea of a curse. I mean, it's almost a curse to be simply educated in the karmi way, with all the influences and the sinful encouragement. Meat eating is there. They have lunch for the kids, and it's all chicken today, turkey tomorrow. And so to kind of cut through that influence, you need a very powerful force, and that very powerful force is Krishna consciousness, beginning with the chanting of the holy names. Because the chanting, Krishna's there in His holy name. And if you're hearing with great attention, that's the first thing, and hopefully with devotion, and also prayerfully, there's different levels. As Prabhupada said, what does it mean? What does the Hare mantra mean? Oh, it means, oh Radha, oh Krishna, please engage me in your service. So that's, you can, with that intentionality, listening carefully and praying, please engage me in your service, please protect me from this influence, from my own mad mind, whatever. But that is very effective and very powerful, and you'll be protected from the kind of, the influences where you just say, well, this is crazy, I don't believe this anymore, I mean, I believe A, B, C, and D, but E, I just can't, it doesn't make any sense. The sun, the moon, the universe, the things, all these things. And it's kind of a slave mentality. I've been doing the pots for 3 weeks, nobody paid me a dime, whatever. I'm getting out of here. Hare Krishna. I'm going back to my old girlfriend. Whatever you got, So that's we want to be protected from that, and by taking shelter of this association of devotees, which basically means hearing and chanting. Just to come together with one other devotee and read Krishna book together. It's so powerful. I've been reading Krishna book over and over, and it's just so nectar. You get absorbed in Krishna's Leela, and you can see how he's like a maestro, arranging these things to intensify the different emotions and relations with the devotees, So that's a gift. Prabhupada originally, wasn't writing the Krishna book. He was doing the Bhagavatam, in the official way with the transliteration and everything. But the books, weren't coming out that fast. You had the first canto, second canto. And then he realized that, well, these devotees, they're going out, they're chanting Krishna's name for hours on end, and they know a little bit about Lord Chaitanya and a little bit about Krishna. I need to give them Krishna's Leela in this little less formal form, the summary study, And so he did. This was 1970. And he was dictating it. They got on the dictaphone, which is a big important thing. And he was doing that in L.A. I think he was staying in L.A. For months. And he's sending the tapes to Boston because that's where all the press was. The transcribers, the artists were all there, And Jadharani, bless her heart, she was the first artist, and she was painting all these Leela. You'd seen the pictures in the books. So she wanted to hear Prabhupada, describing the Leela while she painted. So as soon as they came, she would have them copy them into the normal cassettes, the whole thing with the cassettes. You can play them in a little machine. So not all of them are still extant, maybe about 80%, 90% maybe, which is a lot. And they were the only tapes that we have that survived. The other original are Prabhupada's own typing. He began Bhagavad Gita through the 5th or 6th chapter. I think it's the 5th chapter for sure. He typed all that out, and then he would give it to the composers and editors, and they would edit and compose it. So that's we've survived. But otherwise, the 7th canto, the 8th canto, we have the transcripts of the original tapes, but we don't have the original tapes of Prabhupada doing it. So that Krishna book became then we would read the Krishna book before taking rest. Probably when maybe you'll dream of Krishna, you'll hear Krishna. That was the last thing you hear. I remember in Brooklyn we'd have hot milk, and someone would be in Krishna book, and then you go to sleep and hopefully dream of what you heard. So we should take advantage of it. We've been given all of these gifts, and it all centers on, and it's powered by transcendental sound vibration. And my own, as I'm sure you've realized, my own specialty is the beauty of the Sanskrit language, and wonderful verses, which are translated, in beautiful, nice English. But the Sanskrit has its own power, and if you really know the meaning, just like Balaram knows this verse, Shatru Chedaika Mantram Sakalam Upanishad Bhakti Sampuja Mantram. What is it? Sarvaishwaryaika Mantram? No, it's a mantram. Japa Japa Satatam Janmasapal. So it's an instruction to the tongue. Jive, J-I-H-V-E is the tongue. J-I-V-A is the jiva, a whole different word. So Shatru Chedaika Mantram. Now it's interesting. This is the only mantra. What mantra? Composed of Krishna's holy names. To defeat all your enemies. Now he's not talking about some soldiers on the other side. It's the internal enemies. Lust, anger, greed, illusion, madness, So this is Shatru Chedaika Mantram Sakanam Upanishad Bhakti Sampur. It is worshipped by all the words of the Upanishads. They seem to be worshipping something else, but ultimately they're talking about Krishna, his holy name. Bhakti Sampuja Mantram. The next one is about. That's not the Aishwarya. Sarvaishwaryaika Mantram. Samuchita Samasak Sangha Nirmandam. So it gives you all opulence, not money. It gives you it gives you attraction for Krishna. It gives you self-control. It gives you knowledge. So Sarvaishwaryaika Mantram, and then Sakanam Upanishad. Sakanam Upanishad Vaki Sampuja. No, that's the first line. Samuchita Samasak. Saying, you see, my measure is gone. So all of the accumulated ignorance, darkness in your heart is dissipated just by this mantra composed of Krishna's holy names. Okay. Then the next one, Sarvaishwaryaika Mantram, right? Vyasana Buddhika Sandashta Santrana Mantram. So it gives you all opulences. No, it protects you from Maya. I forget the Sanskrit exactly. But then I love this one. Vyasana Buddhika Sandashta Santrana Mantram. Here goes this thing. It protects you from the bite of the snakes of all your sinful reactions. In other words, clears you from the sinful reaction. So then he said, "Oh tongue, Jive Sampuja Mantram Satatam Upanishad." No. Jive Shri Krishna Mantram. Japa Japa, that's the one. Japa Japa. This is for Japa. Japa Japa Satatam Janmasapalya Mantram. O tongue, Jive, Sri Krishna Mantram, the mantra composed of the holy names of Krishna. Japa Japa, always chant Japa Japa Sapatam, and make my birth successful, make my life successful. So isn't this perfect for the Hare Krishna movement? Anyway, with that, it's 8:30. Is there any discussion on these points? I apologize to those listening online, or maybe not listening, but they can't hear it, who expected to come and hear Maharaj's weekly class, but he's in Laguna Beach, I think, and before he's preparing his trip to India, which is coming in a week or so. Go ahead.
It's not really the same as the programming, but I remember my mom, she had spoken to my uncle that's like a pastor.
And this is when your cousin was already involved?
Yeah. She said, can you talk to Glenn, try to convince him to stop this, whatever he's doing. So I met up with my uncle, and he was asking me nice questions. And then, yeah,
his mother's brother.
And then, I was able to answer my uncle's questions, nicely. And then he ended up telling my mom, leave Glenn alone. Whatever he's doing, it's okay,
So you brainwashed your uncle. He needs deprogramming. Yeah, I remember Glennis. I'm not going to tell the story. That's a secret. Okay, any questions online? Offline? Okay. Thank you very much. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. No breakfast today? Actually, for those who want to hear, this is my fault. We missed glorifying Jagadish Pandit on his disappearance and appearance day. They come like a week apart. You know. One was on my birthday, the 22nd, and the other was on New Year's Eve day, which I gave classes on both days and I missed. So if you indulge me, it's a short amount. Let me just read about him. I don't want. It's important to observe these things. Okay, bookmark. Samadhis. There's the J's. There he is. Okay, I'm sure it isn't very long. No, it's just a few paragraphs. Jagadish Pandit, this is from the Chaitanya Charitamrita. Jagadish Pandit was the savior of the world. He was a monsoon cloud of Krishna Prem, pouring showers of mercy upon everyone. Wow. Just those two sentences, worth it. Jagadish Pandit and his brother, Mahesh, lived near Jagannath Mishra in Sridham, Mayapur. One Ekadashi day, baby Nimai was crying constantly. He stopped after taking Mahaprasadam rice in Jagadish Pandit's home. Then Nimai performed a miracle. Jagadish Pandit swooned in ecstasy upon seeing baby Gauranga manifest a beautiful form with a monsoon cloud blue complexion, shining like lightning and adorned with a shimmering peacock feather. After moving to Sri Chaitradham, Jagannath Puri, Lord Gaurachandra asked Jagadish to come help spread the Harinam Sankirtan movement. Taking Lord Jagannath's permission, Jagadish Pandit took a deity of Jagannath back to Nadia to worship in his village of Yashore. Is that just what is another name for that? Yashora? Jesor. Yeah. In Krishna's Nitya Leela, Jagadish Pandit serves as the dancer Chandrahasa, or a Nagapatni, a wife of Kaliya. So that's Jagadish Pandit. That was worth 2 minutes. Pure nectar. All glory to Srila Prabhupada. Hari Hari Bol.